Okay, so now this might seem a stretch to some, but I'm proposing a theory that it's related. And feel free to challenge me, or for our audience, feel free to disagree. But there are some interesting things in here. So, what other occurrence happened right around early 1900s? Well, there was a promotion. Well, there were a lot of hospitals built there. We were moving from an agricultural economy where most, 95% of people were farmers to more of an urban thing. So there were probably fewer home births, more hospital births. And so that's when circumcision became prevalent in the US. So what caused that change? Well, let's read about it. And I agree with most of this. Male circumcision has been a subject of controversy for a number of reasons, including religious, ethical, sexual, and medical. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, in a rapidly changing medical and surgical world, circumcision rose in popular as a means of prophylaxis in the Anglosphere. Anglosphere. Okay, that's prevention of diseases. Its, prim- its primary justification was to promote cleanliness as well as reducing and preventing the incidence of disease. Many medical professionals and advocates of the procedure also believed that it would reduce pleasure and the urge to masturbate, which was considered a social ill of the era, although their belief is considered false in modern times. You know, too much masturbation is going to cause hair to grow on your palm. Um, so that's the point. That that was the push. It was a moral thing to control people, control men, and it was primarily, I think, among uh, evangelical Protestants. Um, it's not the first time it was discussed, right? In Christianity, right, Nick?
No, no, it was the Gentiles that were uncircumcised and supposedly the Jews that were circumcised. Now, there's a debate whether what is what is biblical circumcision versus Second
Oh,
Temple
I'm
or
not going there yet.
Talmudic. Or, yeah, all right, all right.
I'm talking
I'll go
about the
ahead.
disagreement between Peter and Paul.
No, you don't need to be circumcised. No, no.
Right. And so that was discussed. And okay, I'll just make a passing comment. In classical and Hellenistic civilization, ancient Greeks and Romans posed great value on the beauty of nature, physical integrity, aesthetics, harmonious bodies, and nudity, including the foreskin, in art, and were opposed to circumcision, an opposition inherited by the canon and secular legal systems of the Christian West and East that lasted at least through the Middle Ages, according to Frederick Hodges. So, okay, circumcision changed, and also our views on nudity changed. And that's all I want to say on that. Okay, so then it goes through Book of Genesis and a lot of the ancient issues, and the Romans outlawed it, and there was a biblical controversy, and then I think this is it. Oh, no, further down. Oh, here's Christianity. Now I got to find where this thing is. Okay. The Apostle Paul referred to these practices in his letters, saying, "Was a man already circumcised when he was called? He should not become uncircumcised." Okay, and they're referring to reversal
Ritual
of
circumcision.
circumcision.
Yeah.
But he also explicitly denounced the forcing of circumcision upon non-Jews, rejecting and condemning those Judaizers who stipulated the ritual to Gentile Christians, labeling
I mean,
such advocates.
that was the first
Yeah,
ecumenical council.
yeah, labeling such advocates as false brothers. In the mid 2nd century, rabbinical Jewish leaders, due to an increasing cases of foreskin restorations in the Roman Empire, introduced a radical method of circumcision, the pariah. Or is that how you say that, Nick?
Pariah? Where's it? Oh, yeah.
P-E-R-I-A-H. Pariah.
Paria?
Okay.
I don't know
Okay.
what language it's coming from, so I couldn't.
Okay. That left the glands totally uncovered, and so the remaining, whatever that. The new method became immediately the only valid circumcision procedure to ensure that a born Jew will remain circumcised for all his life, and to make mostly impossible restoring the foreskin. Okay, so prior to this, they just snipped off the tip. So it's the foreskin still mostly covered the glands, but there were two methods for reversing that. One, you could use something to hang a weight and cause the skin to grow, and there was a surgical method. And the Jews did this to pass as Gentiles to avoid discrimination.
Oh,
Remember, during this period, men did engage in athletic competition.
like the gym, like wrestling. Wrestling was one of them.
Yes,
Yeah.
and the wrestling was primarily nude. It
Yeah.
was because it was practical. Remember, during this period of time, clothing was very expensive. You did not have multiple changes of clothes. You didn't want them to get ripped. You didn't want them to get dirty. So sometimes people would disrobe for certain tasks, and possibly there's some speculation that even fishermen, possibly the apostles, didn't wear much clothes when they were out fishing. We don't know.
Good.
But okay, my point is here, remember, okay, the Jews tried to control people with circumcision, and the Christians came up with medical advice or reasons to do this, but their primary reason was to control morality.
And what was
And
going on at this time was a rise of dispensationalism. Isn't that interesting?
yes, and can you really imagine men advocating the removal of their young son's foreskin?
No,
Ugh. No.
no.
So, I've never found documentation that this was primarily pushed or advocated by women. Now, okay, remember, among all these movements, women are not the ultimate leaders. There are men over the top, overzealous men who are influencing the women. Circumcision was Kellogg, the maker of Kellogg cereal. He had a sanitarium or some hospital, a mental health hospital in Battle Creek, Michigan. So he was an advocate. but he was also, I don't know if he was Christian, but he was kind of a wacko. But again, it's to force purity on other people. So I'm not saying that it is the exclusive domain of women, but women latch onto this. Women can advocate for it. Sometimes they promote it. Sometimes I guess you'd call them useful idiots. If I'm not calling them idiots. You know what the term useful idiot is.
Okay, fine, Steve. I'll call them useful idiots.
Okay, I'm not calling them idiots. I am calling them useful idiots.
A useful idiot is still an idiot. No. A useful idiot is still an idiot. It's just that their idiocy is useful to somebody else. So if you're a useful idiot, you're an idiot. It's just you're dumb in a way that I can use to my own ends. So they're idiots.
True enough.
So the purity tornado. So what do we have today, Steve?
Well, we have
We did all this like about the 19th century, early 20th century. We really haven't hit on today.
well before we get to that,
Uh-oh, jumping
let's
ahead.
just talk about women's phrases. You point out something that a woman does or might not be good. What's a common response? Men do that too.
What
Okay,
about?
so
What about?
yeah, what about that? They deflect and say you're just as bad, therefore you can't have that question, or you can't shame me. And then
It's
we hear
it's like a constant round about tornado of who's more pure. He can never get around to addressing the argument.
sure. And then when things get really frustrated, she'll say, "You're not the boss of me." Or have you heard a kid say that to you? I mean,
Oh
that's
yeah.
common
Oh yeah.
from your kids. You're not the boss of me. In fact, yeah, I am. And we see this in the churches and everywhere. But the how many pastors give sermons and say, "Well, women have more empathy than men, or women have such empathy."
Bullshit. Bullshit. Call
I mean,
bullshit
but
on
they
that.
say it.
That's where Plutarch goes
Everybody
too.
believes that women have more empathy than men. And it's really not the
Yeah.
case. And we did a show on this. We saw in that article that women claim they're morally superior. Now, my first wife said that. She also said she was more spiritual than me. And women in general would have us believe that they are more pure and less sinful. Now, does the red pill manosphere agree with that?
No. I don't think so.
No, they don't. Is it easier for a woman to have illicit sex?
Yes.
Is it easier for the average woman to do that than for the average man?
Yes.
I mean, basically, no one's refuted the fact that if a woman wants it, he can go out and find a willing man any night of the week.
Even a fat woman. If she's direct about it, she could probably get it.
Probably.
There's some dumbass desperate enough that he'll stick his dick.
True enough.
Just saying.
So now you want to get into modern day. I guess I'm putting all this under equality and egalitarianism. So the term egalitarianism or egalitarian in the Christian church, when did that become popular? What do you know about that, Nick?
Comes from the French word égalité, and actually it was a famous phrase of the Jacobins of the French Revolution. But egalitarianism, I think, was probably coined in the mid latter 20th century, if I had to guess. But it's the whole point of the equality of the sexes on pretty much every level.
Well, and again, this is my impression. I'm guessing it happened in the 1960s.
That would kind of be my guess.
That would, that was the women's liberation movement. That was in the Catholic Church. It was Vatican II. It was changing of the Mass. Women no longer had to wear head coverings. I think it also coincided with the charismatic movement. Didn't that really take off in the 60s? Then we had the Jesus movement in the 70s.
Okay, look, the charismatic movement has had its origins in like these crazy mystical women, medieval mystics that thought Jesus was their boyfriend and all sorts of crap. Then you had the Anabaptists do the same crap, the antinomians, the Quakers, the early Methodists. Oh, even some of the holiness movements also in the 19th century. Then you had Pentecostals early 20th century as well. And yeah, you had that in the 60s and 70s. Charismatic.
Right, but that's where it became generally popular. And you had a charismatic movement. Pretty much all denominations, a charismatic faction, including the Catholics. There was a Catholic charismatic movement. Up until that point, no, it was the groups that Nick mentioned. So, in addition to that, it's kind of the idea that women are just as holy, just as many spiritual gifts, have the gift of prophecy, have all these equal gifts than men. And I think that coincides with the mainstreaming of egalitarianism in the wider Christian church. So, what do we see today? Marriage is now commonly called a partnership. You even see this among Christians. Marriage is a partnership. Well,
it's not.
It's not. Okay, if you and I form a business partnership to sell cars, does that mean we have a business marriage?
No, it's different.
So a marriage is a partnership, but a partnership isn't a marriage. Okay, so they're two different terms. People, do not consider marriage to be a partnership because that implies two equals and each gets a vote. And when each gets a vote, the woman always gets a veto vote. Therefore, the man is the junior partner.
Hey, and the pastor generally will make sure that you know your place to be the servant leader. Servant of your wife.
So remember, equality And all the things we talked about previously was to control men, to deprive men of their power and authority. Which, go back to Genesis, God gave Adam dominion. He never specifically gave it to Eve. I mean, there are two creation accounts there, and one is more general than the other. But that's my belief. So, how else are men controlled? Well, we have these anti-discrimination laws. Now, I'm not in favor of discrimination. But in lip service to anti-discrimination, we have to hire minorities in women and give them favoritism. So, okay, in order to promote equality, we're promoting inequality. Because if the man is the best candidate, he's handicapped and he's not given the job because someone else is given that job. So that makes it harder for a man to actually earn a good living and provide for his family. But never mind, we need to take his power away and his authority.
Man's
Then,
screwed.
what?
So it seems like the all the parameters of civilization, society, and religion are to screw the man over,
Well, yeah,
handicap him.
but it has to be for good motives. It has to be by someone who has a higher level of purity.
Oh, the women. That's right.
Or minorities too, yeah.
Oh,
Okay, then
okay.
we have the Violence Against Women Act. Well, the things that were illegal for both men and women, but there's special cases for women. So now a woman can just claim something, and a man can be deprived. Oh, he can be deprived of his liberty. Oh, restraining order.
Yep.
Oh, now he loses
Yep.
the right to bear arms. Oh, yes, they can take his children away. Was there
This sounds
really
really
due
familiar.
process?
This sounds really
And
familiar, Steve.
it's consistent with the
Man,
no fault divorce laws, which are not. I mean, they give women a lot more power than men, so they're not equality laws. They handicap the man in order to have equality by elevating the woman and controlling the man.
yeah, because man bad, gotta protect those women. Even though the
So
data does not support those conclusions.